From Eyewitness News, this is Newsmakers.
The race for mayor of Providence is easily the most crowded in the state, with 5 announced candidates and the possibility of even more, including the specter of former mayor, now radio talk show host, Vincent Buddy Cianci. But whoever wins, they'll inherit a tight budget, underperforming schools, and an underfunded pension system. Our guest in the first half of Newsmakers, Democratic candidate for mayor of Providence, Lorne Adrain. Then, next to the run for governor, the primary race for the next Rhode Island general treasurer is one of the most anticipated matchups for 2014. Announced candidates include former treasurer Frank Caprio, former state auditor general Ernie Almonte, and our guest on the second half of Newsmakers, Democratic candidate for general treasurer Seth Magaziner.
Welcome to Newsmakers. I'm Tim White. Joining me on the program, WPRI.com reporter Ted Nesi. Lorne, welcome back to the show. It's really good to have you.
Tim, thanks. Ted, thanks.
So you want to be mayor of Providence. Why?
You know, I'm running for mayor because on a scale of 1 to 10, Providence can be a 10, but we're stuck at a 5. We're stuck at a 5 with respect to the economy. We're stuck at a 5 with respect to education. We're stuck at a 5 with respect to the services that people get from City Hall, and they deserve much better. My entire life has prepared me to serve the people of Providence. I'm, a kid from Warwick, I'm a child of immigrants, one of 8 kids. Went to Warwick Vets High School, went to URI, the first in my family to graduate from college, paid for college by driving a school bus before and after class. So I'll take my life experience and the experience I've had in business and serving the community to transform our economy into an entrepreneurship economy, continue to make progress in our schools, and to transform City Hall into a first-class, world-class customer service operation.
Yeah, I got to tell you, you said stuck at a 5. That is not a resounding testament of current mayor Angel Tavares.
You know, Angel has done some really good things, I believe. And I believe the job of mayor never ends. It's all about good people taking the baton and running it around the track and trying to make progress. I think David Cicilline made great progress, and I think Angel Tavares has made great progress. And it'll be the job of the next mayor to take it further down the road for the best interests of all the people of Providence.
You say you want to get to a 10, but there was fear Providence could get to a 1 if the city had to file for bankruptcy in the last couple of years. And obviously, while the progress has been made, there are still real concerns out there about the city's financial condition. How concerned are you, as someone who hopes to take the reins of this city, that Providence could still be forced to file for bankruptcy in the next 4 to 8 years?
So Chicken Little always felt that the sky was falling. I don't believe the sky's falling. I believe that there's great potential here if we decide that together we're going to make it come alive. So I don't think about bankruptcy. I think about what Providence can be, should be, and will be if we're working together, make it so.
But isn't that the problem, that previous mayors didn't think about bankruptcy till there was no money left and we were almost bankrupt? Isn't that sort of the heart of some of the problem in Providence, not being hard-nosed about the financial situation of the city?
So all things in balance. I think you do have to be hard-nosed about the finances of the city. You have to be thoughtful about it. You need consistency over time in making these things work. But you always have to have an eye toward a plan that's better than where we are today. As I say, we should be twice as good. We can be twice as good. And I'll have a team around me that will help us do that.
Sky might not be falling for you, but property taxes have been rising. Do you anticipate that in your first term as mayor, that property taxes will have to go up to offset some of the bad finances, need more revenue?
My objective is to make Providence a competitive city in the nation, a competitive city around the world. And to do so, we have to look at all of the elements that make a place an attractive place to do business, an attractive place to live, an attractive place to raise a family. It's about schools, it's about tax rates.
Property taxes are very important to the people who are going to be considering you as the next mayor. Will property taxes, can you promise right now that property taxes will not go up in your first term as mayor?
My goal is to reduce property taxes. My goal is to make taxes lower in every part of the city of Providence. Business taxes, property taxes. The way we can do that is by having an entrepreneurship economy that brings more energy into the city and brings more resources into the budget.
Go ahead, Ted.
One of those financial problems, we're not to harp on it, but is the pension fund shortfall in the city. It's back at $900 million. It's one of the biggest pressures on the bottom line of the city budget. The mayor obviously cut a big deal to reduce that, but it's still a huge outstanding liability. Do you think the mayor got enough savings in that pension reform, or do you think you will, if you become mayor again, have to open up the pension issue and try to reduce benefits once again?
I think the mayor made progress, but I think there's more progress to be made. I believe that we're not going to solve the pension funding problem overnight, but I believe that we have to make funding the pension an obligation in every budget. And I think that over time, while we're building an economy, we'll have more resources to meet our obligations of funding that budget. I think our assumption about the returns in the portfolio are too high. It makes it convenient for
that will
politicians.
increase the unfunded liability if you lower that. So do you think you'll have to go back to the unions, to Ted's question, and ask for more concessions with the pensions?
That is entirely possible. Sitting here today, I don't know. But I think that's entirely possible. We have to look at this as a system. We have to look at this as a community and decide together what needs to be done over the course of a number of years. I'm committed to serving as mayor for 8 years if the people will have me. And over the course of that period of time, we can build an economy that's thriving, an economy that funds pension plans and other obligations in the city.
Mayor Taveras wants to strip the pension of Nicholas Gianquitti. He's the former police officer with a disability pension, and he's serving life at the ACI for second-degree murder in the shooting death of a Cranston firefighter, James Magano. Should the city have the ability to take away his pension? Is that a good idea? Do you support it, or do you think it's a campaign move for a person running for governor right now?
It does strike me that has political overtones. I'm not familiar with the case, but I think as a matter of principle, the city offers pensions to people who offer, good and respectful service to the city, and to the extent that someone has shattered their responsibility as a citizen in our city, I think it's fair to question whether that is an obligation that we should keep.
But right now the ordinance would only go after this one individual because it was a high-profile case. Surely there are other people at the ACI collecting a pension. Should all of them be stripped of it then, under that logic?
I can't say that's the case. And the truth is I don't know enough about this case to comment in a way that's thoughtful.
Lorne, you clearly, from what you're saying, a big focus for you is to grow the Providence economy, and that will then hopefully help with the funding problems on the other side of the ledger for the city budget. So let's talk about growth then. Where do you see economic growth coming from in Providence over the next 5, 10, 20 years? Is it the eds and meds that are talked about so much? Is it tourism? Is it something else? What do you see as the biggest opportunities there?
So I think it's important to think about it as a portfolio, because none of us can guess which sector is going to thrive. And I think we learned that painful lesson when as a state we invested in 38 studios. I think what we need to do is think about a portfolio, and in my view, it's an entrepreneurship economy that helps people from immigrant to Ivy League, from low tech to high tech, from micro to macro, to help them all to thrive. And then we have a diverse economy that can stand the test of time and can weather the ups and downs in the economy around the country and around the globe. And it's that kind of strategy that will give us the resources we need to make everything else better, from schools to operation of City Hall to fire and safety and everything else.
The report card on Providence schools isn't good. Buildings are falling apart, chronic absenteeism. At most high schools, 80% of students are getting a 1 out of 4 on the math and kneecap. Why I think we can all appreciate you can't flip a switch and make it all better instantly. I'm curious, what is one tangible difference we will see in Providence schools at the end of your first term as mayor, if you win?
I think one thing you will see is consistent focus on helping every student succeed at every grade. I think
What does that mean?
That means whether you're pre-K, K, first, second, third, or 12th grade, we need to be looking at what does each student need in each grade to be successful in keeping up with grade level reading, math, science, and the other social skills and art skills that help them to round out a life that inspires them.
You have a pretty strong background in education. Do you support standardized tests as a graduation requirement?
I believe it's really important for us to have standards. I believe it's important to have standards that students can measure their progress against, that teachers can measure their progress against, that a system can measure its progress against, and that employers can rely on as a standard of ability and skill of the people they want to hire.
So that's a yes to standardized testing?
That is a yes to having standards. I think the plan of having the kneecap test as a cliff is not fair. We have spent years not doing the job that we need to do to help every student succeed, so we can't expect a student to be to not be served well over the course of 12 years and then expect them to pass a test in grade 12.
Here's a simple one for you. What do you think should be done about the Superman building?
You know, the Superman building is, we all feel it's an iconic building for the city of Providence. That building will be a fabulous development when an investor sees an economy that he or she can count on, when an investor sees consistency in policy making and tax policy that they can rely on, when an investor sees the potential for making a return on a dollar invested.
Well, the investor there right now says he sees all that. He just needs $39 million in tax credits from the state and another $10 to $15 million in tax stabilization from the city. Do you think that's a reason? You're a financial guy yourself. Do you think it's a reasonable ask?
I think the city, you know, that particular ask, I'm not sure. I believe that the city should always be looking at and open to negotiations for catalytic developments that can inspire economy around it, that can enable dramatic change in the city. We should always be open to and looking at those kinds of opportunities in the form of tax credits.
We got about a minute left here. I'm curious what you think you would like to see happen with the 195 land.
Yeah, so I think the 195 land should be a land of innovation and economic growth. I believe it can, I've brought people to look at that land. Just yesterday I had a developer of billion-dollar data centers around the country here to look at Providence. Very interested in Providence, very interested in the 195 land, very interested in other parts of our city. And that kind of a development would bring 500 jobs with it in a technology platform that would enable so many other things in our economy. Those are the kinds of things we need to be looking at, looking beyond our city, looking around the country and around the world for possible investors.
Do you think Providence has enough say, has enough seats at the table in what is being done with that land right now? Any concerns there?
I don't have any concerns about it. I think the governance of that land is in good form and was very thoughtfully done on the part of leaders in the city and the state.
All right, we have to go to break here, bring up our next guest, but wrap it up with this. We do a lot of debates here at Eyewitness News. Will you debate your opponents on our airwaves?
Absolutely. It'd be a delight, and I appreciate the opportunity.
Okay. It won't be a delight. That's our job.
Democratic candidate for mayor of Providence, Lorne Adrain. Thanks so much for joining us on the program. When we come back,
very much.
Democratic candidate for General
Thank you.
Treasurer Seth Magaziner. Stay with us. You're watching Newsmakers. Welcome back to Newsmakers. I'm Tim White. To my right, WPRI.com reporter Ted Nesi, and our guest for the second half, Democratic candidate for General Treasurer Seth Magaziner. Welcome to the program.
Thank you, guys. Thanks for having me.
Why do you want to be General Treasurer?
Well, listen, I'm a Rhode Islander. I was born here. I grew up here. Now, as an adult, I choose to live here. I love this state. I'm proud of it. But we've been on the wrong track now for a while. We've got the highest unemployment rate in the country, and people are losing hope. If we are going to get back on track, we need to have the courage to make a clean break with the old ways that got us into this mess and elect leaders who are going to bring new energy, new ideas to the State House. My background is as an investment professional. I know that the office of the treasurer has to be a springboard for economic growth in this state. That's why I'm running. I know that I can get it done.
Now, the first half of that sounded to me like you were running for governor.
Well, listen, everybody who is running for office this year, whether it's treasurer, governor, whatever, the focus has to be on jobs. That's what we need. I don't need to tell you guys, Massachusetts today has more jobs than it did in 2007 before the recession. In Rhode Island, we're only halfway out of the hole. We've only gained back half of the jobs that we lost. So putting people back to work in Rhode Island has to be the priority.
So in a release this morning, we tape on a Friday, it announced an advisor group of business leaders for your campaign. John Duffy of Duffy and Shanley provided a quote that said, quote, Seth's track record as an investment professional is unmatched in this race. That is a big claim, unmatched. Frank Caprio likes to say the retirement fund outperformed Harvard when he was treasurer, so wow us with your track record,
Well,
Seth.
listen, I wouldn't want to take investment advice from someone who lost $2 billion. And the fact is that during the time that my opponent was in office as treasurer, we underperformed most other states most years that he was there. My track record as an investor at Trillium Asset Management, where we manage over $1 billion of retirement funds, college funds, nonprofit endowments, we've had very strong performance through the years. My role at Trillium was overseeing all of our investments in financial services and energy. That's about $100 million of investment positions. We've done very well. Last year, we outperformed the market significantly. I know that I can bring that track record, that investment experience to the Treasurer's office to get a good return on our investment for Rhode Islanders.
The Treasurer's office has hardly been quiet the last few years with Gina Raimondo in there. A simple question for you. Do you support the 2011 pension law?
Well, it's very important for everyone to understand where this pension situation came from. It was not the fault of the workers or the retirees. They never missed a payment. They never did anything wrong. The fault lies entirely with a generation of politicians at the State House who made promises and mismanaged that system. There were some years in the 90s when they missed payments into the system altogether. And then there was a lot of fuzzy math. There was a lot of poor financial management, underperformance year after year, to the point where when we got to 2011, we were one of the worst funded systems of any state in the country. So we had to do a reform. It would be very easy for me running for treasurer to say we didn't have to do one, but we did because the system was mismanaged for so long. And the real tragedy is if we had fixed the problem 10 years ago or 20 years ago, it would have been a much less painful fix. But the old crowd at the State House wanted to kick the can down the road, let it get worse and worse. My focus as treasurer is to say, look, let's make sure that we never have to go through this again. Let's make sure that this reform process, when it's over, will be the last one we ever have to do. From now on, we're going to get a good return on our investment. No more missed payments, no more delayed payments. The people who are in the system deserve better, and so do all Rhode Islanders.
Let's stick with the pension fund question then. And you're talking about investments a lot, and that's the next big debate, it seems. Treasurer Raimondo has taken a lot of heat for moving more than $1 billion of the pension money into hedge funds. Basically, do you, as an investment person, do you agree or disagree with making those investments into the hedge funds? And what do you think of the criticism she's taken for it?
It's important to manage risk, and if we had managed our risk better, for example, in 2008, we wouldn't have underperformed so badly. But that being said, the fees on hedge funds and all of our funds across the portfolio can and should be lower. My approach is going to be to say, look, large states like New York and California, they pay a lower rate on the fees that they pay to these funds because they're bigger. They have that negotiating power. If Rhode Island were to work together with other small states, negotiate as a group with fund managers, we could increase our leverage and bring those fees down as well so that more of that money stays here in Rhode Island instead of going to Wall Street.
But you do see a role for hedge funds in the pension portfolio?
Yeah, I think there are times when the use of hedge funds is appropriate, especially in a low interest rate environment. But we can be better on transparency, we can be better on fees.
You know, before I want to get back to pensions, but I just noticed in that answer there you took a second shot at Frank Caprio for losing $2 billion. But wasn't that at the time when the entire economy in the nation collapsed, Seth? Is that really fair to pin it on Frank Caprio?
Compare us to our peer states. The whole 4 years that Treasurer Caprio was there, and especially in 2008, we underperformed the median of states by more than 1%, which is, in an $8 billion fund, about $100 million of the people's money that we lost, compared to if we had just been in the middle of the pack. So the record speaks for itself, as does my record as an investment professional at Trillium, where we've performed very well.
So back to pensions. If you had said you don't want to have to do this again and revisit pension reform, it looks like this is going to the courts as the settlement fell apart. If the state wins in the pension settlement and the entire 2011 law is upheld, do you think that's it? Are we ever going to have to revisit it? Did that law go far enough?
I think the law went far enough. As you know, a healthy pension system is one that's about 80% funded, meaning that you don't have to be 100% funded because not all of your employees are going to retire all at once. But if you have a fund that's got about 80% of what your liabilities are going to be, then you're doing all right. By 2011, we were down in the 40% range, 45, 46%. The reform got us up close to 60 and now has us on a path to get to 80 in the next couple decades. So I do think that it went far enough. That being said, look, in public policy, the conversation's never over. And when I'm treasurer, the door's always going to be open. There's always room for discussion about how we can do better, how we can make improvements going forward. But my feeling is that there wasn't a need to go further than the 2011 reform went.
The governor had wanted to get into settlement talks. The General Treasurer Gina Raimondo was less than lukewarm about doing that initially. How do you feel about it?
I was supportive of the settlement talks. I think that, as I said earlier, it's always good to have the conversation. It's always good to bring people together and see if you can find better solutions. Look, we're in a situation now where this is likely going to be going through the courts for years, and this is a multi-billion-dollar uncertainty that's hanging over our heads. So if it is possible to find a settlement that maintains the integrity of the reform, keeps us on a path to get to 80%, but eliminates this uncertainty, this multi-billion-dollar overhang, then I'm all for it. You know, I was supportive of having settlement talks, and I think we should keep talking.
You are 30 years old, and you're asking the voters of Rhode Island to give you responsibility for an $8 billion retirement fund, as well as a number of other duties that come with this office. Isn't that just too young to be entrusted with
this? Well, the viewers at home should understand I'm older than Ted is, even though he has more gray hair than I do, and so people need to understand this dynamic. No, look,
and as you can see, I'm not even the host.
Well, listen,
and soon we'll be off the show.
As a professional investor, when people trust you with their savings, whether it's their retirement savings, their kids' college fund, the endowment of the nonprofit that they care about, they're trusting you with more than just their money. They're trusting you with their hopes, their dreams, their aspirations. I've taken that responsibility on, and I've delivered. You know, in the private sector, if you don't perform well, people can take their money away from you at any time. And at the time I was at Trillium, not only did that not happen, but we gained clients because we performed well. I'll put my track record as an investor up against anyone else in this race. I know that I can take my investment experience in the private sector and deliver for the people of Rhode Island.
General Treasurer Gina Raimondo pushed the Investment Commission to not invest in gun companies. Do you agree with that move?
Well, listen, that investment fund, that pension fund exists to provide a secure retirement to those who have spent their lives serving the rest of us, teaching our kids, keeping our streets safe, running into burning buildings when others are running out. The number one overriding priority of any investment strategy has to be what is going to guarantee the retirement security of the folks who are in the system.
And gun companies are doing fairly well.
Well, so every investment decision that I make when I am treasurer is going to be through that lens. What is going to guarantee the retirement security of those folks who are in the system and reduce the likelihood that we'll ever have to go through another reform again?
You know, you announced today, as Tim said, an impressive list of business leaders who are backing you. Former Gilbane CEO Paul Chiquette, former Fleet CEO Terry Murray, John Duffy. Quite a few of these people are also strong supporters of Gina Raimondo. Some of them were involved with Engage Rhode Island, which was pretty controversial. And you also worked for one summer for her old firm, Point Judith Capital. What do you say to those Democrats who don't like Gina Raimondo and are going to say he's just the heir apparent? He's the chosen replacement for her for the same policies.
Well, in addition to the list of business leaders that you mentioned who are supporting my campaign, we also this week announced our endorsement from the United Food and Commercial Workers, a large labor union, one of the most progressive unions in the state. That was our second union endorsement that we announced in the last 2 weeks. I am a proud progressive Democrat. Look, everyone across the ideological spectrum is sick of the old crowd at the State House and wants some change. What you're seeing in our campaign is people coming together who maybe don't agree on every issue, but they're united by the fact that they're tired of the old guard at the State House. They want some new energy up there. They want some new faces. That's why we're going to win this campaign.
Will you support someone for governor before the primary?
Oh, I look forward to supporting the Democratic nominee. No, and honestly, I'm a big fan of all three Democrats who are running for governor. I think we have a strong field this year.
I assume you don't think Clay Pell is too young for the job then. One other question back on the pension fund. 7.5% is where Gina Raimondo and their retirement board have set that. Yeah. There is such a wide range of opinion about that from the Wall Street investor types who say it should be down at like 4, and the union folks who say she jacked it down to 7.5, it should be at 8. What do you think? Do you think 7.5 is right? Are you going to move to change that one way or another if you're elected?
Yeah, I think the 7.5% assumed return assumption is aggressive but achievable. I think it can be done, but it's not going to be easy. And it's very important to have a treasurer who has a track record of success, who understands the financial markets. So I feel comfortable with the 7.5% rate, but that's not to say that it's going to be easy. You need to have someone in the job who knows how to produce good returns in the investment world, as I have.
And so you won't, very briefly, wouldn't initially ask the Investment Commission to lower that or raise it?
No, my focus will be making sure that we get the best possible return that we can for the folks who are in the system.
Same question for you. We do a lot of debates here. We anticipate doing one for General Treasurer. Will we see you on our airwaves in one of those debates?
Absolutely. I'm looking forward to it.
Seth Magaziner is a Democratic candidate for Rhode Island General Treasurer. Thank you so much for joining us on the program. We appreciate it.
Thank you, guys. Thanks for having me.
All right. If you missed any
You
of
won't
it,
be back after that crack about my hair.
Our first half guest was Lorne Adrain. He's running for mayor of Providence as a Democrat. You can watch it online, WPRI.com. For Ted Nisi, I'm Tim White. We'll see you next week on Newsmakers.